Okay, hello, this is video lecture number 71, the Treaty of Versailles. We only have two subsections today. We are looking at the fate of Woodrow Wilson's ideas and Congress rejects the treaty. So the terms of the peace of World War I, they were politically divisive, and the U.S. Senate refused to ratify the treaty. Just by 2 votes late in 1919, and on a final roll call early the next year, they twice, again, failed to ratify the treaty. And then the United States were not involved in the League of Nations, which was one of Roosevelt's main ideas as part of his 14 points speech to bring about a peaceful end to this war and to lead the world into the future. So today's video lecture is going to be short. It's going to just look at these ideas, the 14 points and the League of Nations, and exactly how Wilson and the Congress reacted and treated these developments. So let's get started with the very first subsection, the fate of Wilson's ideas. In January 1917, the idealistic Wilson had proposed peace without victory, arguing that only peace among equals could last. Having achieved victory, though, at an incredible price, Britain and France showed absolutely no interest in such a plan. But the war's horrors had created popular pressure for an outcome that was just and enduring. Wilson scored a diplomatic victory in January 1919 when the Allies accepted his 14 points as the basis for negotiations. The points embodied one important strand in American progressivism. They called for open diplomacy, absolute freedom of navigation upon the seas, arms reduction, removal of trade barriers, and national self-determination for the peoples in the Austro-Hungarian, Russian, and German empires. Essential to Wilson's vision was the founding of a League of Nations that would guarantee independence and territorial integrity to great and small states alike. Acting as an international regulatory body, the League would do things like it would mediate disputes, it would supervise arms reductions, and according to the crucial Article 10 of its covenant, it would curb aggressor nations through collective military action. Wilson hoped the League would end all wars. The 3 European Allied leaders, Prime Minister David Lloyd George of Great Britain, Premier Georges Clemenceau of France, and Prime Minister Vittorio Orlando of Italy, wanted to punish Germany for World War I. Their plan for doing so had disastrous consequences. First, they forced Germany to pay $33 billion in reparations and give up coal supplies, merchant ships, valuable patents, and even part of its territory along the French border. These requirements caused keen resentment and economic hardship in Germany, and over the following 2 decades they helped lead to World War II. Wilson had less success in other areas in persuading the Allies to adopt his 14 points. The Allies dismantled the Central Powers' colonial empires, but did not create independent states. Instead, they assigned colonies to themselves to administer as mandates. Japan took Germany's possessions in East Asia, while France kept Indochina. Because the war finished off the Ottoman Empire, France and England laid claim to Ottoman and German colonies in Africa and in the Middle East. Given these results, the Versailles Treaty must be judged as one of history's greatest catastrophes. In Europe itself, as well as places as far-flung as Palestine and Indochina, it created the conditions for horrific future bloodshed. Wilson hoped the new League of Nations, authorized by the treaty, would moderate the terms of the settlement and secure a peaceful resolution of other disputes. For this to occur, American participation in the League was crucial. So the President set out to persuade the Senate to ratify the Treaty of Versailles. That brings us to the next section, which is Congress rejects the treaty. Although major opinion makers and religious denominations supported the treaty, the Republican Party was openly hostile, and it held a majority in the Senate. One group, called the Irreconcilables, consisted of Western Republicans such as Hiram Johnson of California and, again, Robert La Follette of Wisconsin, who opposed U.S. involvement in European affairs. Another group of Republicans, led by Senator Henry Cabot Lodge of Massachusetts, worried that Article 10, the provision for collective security, would prevent the United States from pursuing an independent foreign policy. They feared that it would tie the U.S. too closely to what other nations wanted to do. Now, to mobilize support for the treaty, the president embarked on an exhausting speaking tour. In Pueblo, Colorado, in September 1919, Wilson collapsed. A week later, back in Washington, he suffered a severe stroke that left one side of his body paralyzed. Wilson still urged Democratic senators to reject all Republican amendments. When the treaty came up for a vote in November 1919, it failed to win the required two-thirds majority. A second attempt in March 1920 fell 7 votes short. The treaty was dead, at least in the United States. And so was Wilson's leadership. The president never fully recovered from his stroke. The United States never ratified the Versailles Treaty, and they never joined the League of Nations. In turn, the weak League failed to do what Wilson had hoped. When Wilson died in 1924, his dream of a just and peaceful international order lay in ruins. Okay, so that's it. This, again, was a short video lecture. So at this time, let's go ahead and answer those review questions and continue on with your notes and your work.